Welcome back to Rochester Living with Mark Siwiec and Corey James Moran, brought to you by Elysian Homes by Mark Siwiec and Associates. This is episode 183. Mark, how are you?
I think the question is, how are you?
We'll get to me in a sec. First, I do want to point to our guest. We'll say hi really quick. 2023 Superintendent of the Year.
The national, not
National.
Like, not like some local dinky kind of like big deal federal. Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin McGowan, the superintendent of the Brighton Central School District, is going to be joining us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Literally coming out of the bullpen for us.
It's absolutely my pleasure, Corey. Thanks for having me, Mark. Thanks for having me. Really excited about this.
I do want to get to my trip first, though, because Kevin's got such a better story to tell of his trip than mine. So I'll get mine out of the way. Back from Turks and Caicos, survived. Am I tan?
Yeah.
Is this tan?
It's yeah.
This is about as tan as I get.
Yeah.
This is what SPF 500 does.
You look
I didn't burn, though, so that was nice. It was fun. It was a family trip, not a vacation. Family trip. There's a distinction.
Mm-hmm.
But the craziest thing happened. So we're in Turks and Caicos, an island that has very few shark attacks. A woman from Canada had her hands bitten off
No.
last Friday.
Come on.
Holy cow.
I think she was snorkeling and she was wading in the water, and this bull shark is kind of swimming around. And I guess the reports kept saying she was trying to engage with it. I don't know what that means. She was trying to get a photo, I guess. And it ended up, I guess it bit her thigh, circled back around, and then got her hands.
And
She's alive. They had to fly her back to Canada.
oh my God.
Unbelievable.
Why are you telling us this?
Because we're there and that happens. Like, okay, let's go in the ocean, have a great time.
Meal? Didn't you enjoy your kids' company? I mean, like
The bull shark story? That's not the lead?
She did engage with the shark, right? Like she tried to get it to take a picture with her.
Exactly.
Okay, I think that's important.
And he said no photos.
Right. Yeah, he didn't appreciate it.
He did not.
He acted like my kids do when my wife wants a picture.
100%, yes.
It's not a big shock.
6-foot bull shark in the water? I'm going to get out of there.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
what I'm gonna
insane.
do.
That's crazy.
Food was great, too. You know. All that.
But you had a great trip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Very tired now because
And how many were there total? There were
I was 25, 26. I lost count.
Yeah.
It was 10 kids under 10.
okay.
So it was a lot of energy. Woke up this morning after getting home from the airport at 1:30. At 6:30, because my oldest son was very upset. We were still not on vacation, and he wanted to go back immediately. So
He probably missed eating shark too. I'm guessing,
100%.
Corey. Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
all right, and I'm going to screw up your like everything that you want to do, but it's a great segue because our guest Kevin McGowan, superintendent of the Brighton School District. So we had a cancellation this morning, and the guest that we were going to have ended up with a really bad sinus infection. So I'm like, okay, well, we're going to have Kevin later this season, like maybe. So I reach out to Kevin, text him, and an hour or two goes by, and I'm thinking that he's like in some important meeting of some sort, and he texts me back, and you were in Guatemala.
Yes.
Until when?
So we got into the airport last night about 11:30, but we were in Antigua, Guatemala at left there at 3 a.m. whichever day that was. So yesterday, and then got into Rochester about 11:30. So
And you slept until this morning.
Yes.
And here you are.
I am here and I am ready and raring to go. I
I
mean, I'm
can't
dressed a little
believe
more
it.
casually, I think, because my post-trip coma, but I'm really excited to be here. And
Listen,
talk
the
to you.
fact you're here
Yeah.
is
Honestly.
it's heroic. It really
Yes,
is.
yeah.
Listen, we'll get to what Kevin was doing on that trip because it wasn't just a vacation. It was not just a vacation.
No, it was not.
But let's get
No.
to real estate first because there's not a ton to get to.
Let's do it.
I can't believe these numbers are real.
I know.
So last time we spoke on the podcast, 332 single-family active listings in Monroe County.
Yep.
We've dropped to 281. I heard you guys got some snow, though, so maybe that has a little something to do with it.
281.
Yeah.
Let's just focus on that for a second.
281. Yep.
And so the last I counted, there were about 200 or so properties that were listed for sale in Monroe County under $200,000.
Yep.
And then there are like 10, 12, 16, something like that, newly built homes. So really what this is saying, in essence, is that there are about 75 single-family homes worth more than $200,000 listed for sale in the 20 municipalities that comprise Monroe County.
So every town has one.
I've never, ever seen anything like this.
Which is nuts, because we've gone through 4 years of I've never seen anything like this, and now here we are again. Never seen anything like this.
It is really just insane. So
big drop in the 6-county region as well. 586 last week. We're down to 513 right now, so it's not just the Monroe County thing.
Yeah.
Properties under contract and pending. Those numbers are going up. So again, this is showing that properties that are being listed, the very few that are out there, are selling. It was 633 last week in Monroe County. We're up to 697. And then for the 6-county region, 985 last week, up to 1079 for this week. Mark, I'm going to turn to you for the next one. What's going on with interest rates? We're down?
So while you were away this past Friday, I think it was this past Friday, consumer spending.
That's okay. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Are we just like praying for the one piece of economic data that says maybe it's not going to be terrible?
I mean, every week there's a new data point, which is causing the 30-year mortgage to drop 0.6 of a point, or go up 0.7 of a point, or like it is just like it's ping-ponging back and forth. We're getting like we're ricocheting between 6.97% on the low end, about 7.15%, something like that on the
6.96 right now.
Okay, well, there we go. So
new low record.
But I mean, I would really encourage. So right now, I am in the process of trying to refinance some mortgages and some other rental properties. And the reason I want to do so now, and not when those balloon payments are due in 9 months or a year and a half from now, is because I am genuinely very, very concerned about what's going on for all the reasons that we've been citing over the course of the past. But it has become a little more unusual in Washington over the course of the past week or so.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. So causing a lot of concern. So I just don't know. I just don't know where this is headed, but I don't think it's going to be good. And for those who just continue to cling to the notion that interest rates are going to drop, the mortgage rate is going to drop over the course of the next 6 months, I don't know what drugs they're doing, but dear God.
Well, inflation's ticking up. I mean, the Fed seems to be signaling that
the eggs.
Maybe not rate cuts.
But the eggs.
Yeah. We had no milk but when we came back from vacation today. So at 6:30 this morning, after my son woke me up, because he was mad we were not on vacation, I had to drive to Wegmans to get 2 gallons of milk and a loaf of bread, and it was $17.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
thought it was
supposed to be fixed.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. Yeah. Anyway,
I thought within 24 hours it was going to be fixed. Actually,
yeah, well,
that's what I heard.
Like immediately,
really
like it was
long.
like it was immediately. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Wow.
Any other real estate chatter before we dive in?
Prediction.
Okay.
Prediction is we have. I mean, you were telling me a short while ago how many inches of snow have we had?
We've had double actually for last year to this year. So it was 37 something last year, and we're now probably higher now because we had the extra snow. But it was like 72 and change.
Yeah.
In terms of inches.
So. And it's been bitter cold.
Yeah.
This coming Monday, so this will drop. Alex, I mean, I realize it's late in the week, so this might drop on Monday. We might get it out tomorrow, Friday. But Monday it's going to be 38 degrees and followed by 40. 30.
yeah.
So we're going to start to see the thaw next week.
Okay.
That coupled with the fact that we're also getting beyond the February holidays, the President Week holidays, and people will be coming back. I think the phone is going to start to ring, and I think that more properties will come in the market. Well, let's face it. I mean, it can't go down really.
We keep saying that.
Yeah, I know.
You keep saying it. 281.
Yeah, right.
It's a real number.
All right.
Let's bring in Kevin. Kevin, again, thank you. Let's get back to your trip.
Sure.
What were you doing in Guatemala?
Wait, do we sufficiently know who Kevin is? I mean, like, yes, he was a superintendent.
You do the intro. You got this.
All right. So actually, you know what? I mean, you're one of my best friends. I don't know if I can do your intro. All right. So the most important thing that we can say about Kevin is that he and I graduated from the same high school.
Here
in
we
Buffalo,
go.
Canisius
Do
High
the thing
School.
that you guys do. Say the thing.
Yeah. St. Peter Canisius.
Pray for us.
Yeah, because Jay was on here a few months ago.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we did with Jay. Became superintendent in 2009 of the Brighton School District.
Yep, I was in Warsaw in 2006 as superintendent. Came here in 2009.
So
It's been
so
wonderful.
16 years.
Yep.
And you were, we celebrated 2 years ago down in St. John.
Yeah.
You were the superintendent of the year for the entire nation, which is really a big deal. And we're going to talk about that in just a few moments.
Thanks.
But one of the things that I really love saying about Kevin is I always say to people, and I genuinely think of you as sort of the moral compass, the spiritual center of the town of Brighton because of your leadership and just through the years, just constantly always committed to doing the right thing, and I'm always so impressed. And I'll hear something on the radio, I'll read something in the paper, I'll hear a conversation, and I'm just like, yep, that's Kevin. So we'll get into all that in just a little bit. So that's just a little bit about Kevin. Did I miss anything in terms of your bio?
You nailed it.
Well,
Yeah,
course he did.
I'm a dad
Yep.
with kids in the district, and more than anything, it's a place that allows me to be a dad. So
yeah,
thank you.
yeah, that's great. That's awesome. You're on.
Okay, there we go. See, well done.
There we
crush
go.
it. Let's start kind of at the beginning. How did you get here? What was the journey?
Oh, that's a great question, Corey. So I started out elementary teacher, grew up in Buffalo, as Mark said, went to the same high school, went to Canisius College, elementary teacher, high school assistant principal, elementary principal, became the superintendent in Warsaw, and then was at a point there. It was a wonderful experience in a smaller, more rural place. But really was thinking about long-term and where we wanted to raise our kids and the type of community we'd like to be in, the type of area. And Brighton was this amazing opportunity if you're a baseball fan to play for the Yankees, if you're of a different persuasion, the Red Sox, a championship place. But a championship place not just in terms of the educational organization, but the opportunity for my kids and family to live here, my wife Betsy, for us to really put down our roots and decide where we would be for the long term. And so 16 years later, here I am with 2 of the 3 graduated, the third who was not even contemplated at that point in 7th grade, and, really having the experience of a lifetime as a parent, but also as a leader who works with an incredible team of people and in a community that I appreciate everything Mark said about being the kind of part of that moral compass, but it's because I'm in a place that allows me to be that. And
I was going to say, it's not typical for that position to be embrace the community in the way that you have.
Well, part of that is longevity, but I'm going to go back to, I've worked with an incredible school board staff and leadership team over that period of time, and it has allowed for that. So not everybody has the opportunity and the gift of that, and maybe longevity plays into that. There's a whole bunch of factors I think that combine to make that a great situation.
Talk to us about longevity for a second. What, you probably don't know an actual number, but what do you think the average, let's exclude the city of Rochester, because we know that the school superintendent in the city of Rochester last 2 or 3 years. Yeah. Let's just focus on suburban districts. What do you think the average tenure of a superintendent is before they move on to a new gig?
Well, across the country, it's between 3 and 5 years.
Between 3 and 5 years. And you've been there for
16
years. Yeah. 16, 19 years.
16. 19 as superintendent, but 16 in Brighton.
That's insane. But again, it's because, I'll never forget, one of my favorite stories about you is back in 2016, Donald Trump is president for literally just a few days before he says, we as the United States are not going to allow any Muslims or anybody from these 7 Muslim countries to enter the United States. And within moments, you blasted out an email, a kindly worded, compassionate, supportive email saying, this is not who we are. We are a community. We are inclusive. We embrace everybody, regardless of your politics, regardless of your religion, regardless of your nationality. That remains. 9 years later, that remains with me. And through the years, it's just constantly. So it's really beautiful, really incredible. And actually, perhaps it's maybe a nice segue to, we talked a little bit earlier. What are the challenges? I mean, some of these same challenges, I think, are now rearing their head again. And are you finding that you're having to confront some of these same issues or issues that are similar?
Every day, and I actually think it's far more challenging now than it was then.
Really? In what way?
Well, then it was a surprise and a shock, and these were new scenarios. But the chaos over the past month, the intentional chaos of the last month, has created all sorts of challenges. Last time, there were barriers in place. Excuse me. It felt as though there were constitutional norms that were followed. There were legal procedures that were respected. There were just, shocking moments like the travel ban, and you could respond by saying, hey, listen, we're here for you, and we'll continue to be here for you, which we've also done recently as well, but in a little bit of a different way, because we're trying not to contribute to political divisiveness either, and trying to really just say to people, forget about the words that are being used. We're here for you. We're going to maintain who we are and be who we are. The problem now is the chaos being caused by significant technical and legal issues is really unheard of. So last time he said those things, right? Mm-hmm. He said there's a travel ban. Here's what we're going to do. Okay, we could manage that. We could tell people we're here for you. Now they are cutting to the core of what we do. They are challenging us financially. They are challenging us in terms of policy and law. And I'd be happy to elaborate if you'd like, but it is really dramatic what is happening by the day. We get $2.3 million in federal funds. To give people context of that, they may look at it and say, well, but most of what you get is local property tax levy or state aid. $2.3 million equates to nearly a 5% difference in our tax levy. And remember, there's a ballpark 2% property tax cap, and that number shifts based on an algorithm. But that 5% difference, where will that money come from if we don't get that money?
So listen, I got to be honest. I mean, I'm somebody who until recently would spend the first hour and a half of my day, every single day, just reading newspapers. And I've really had to sort of protect my peace, and I don't read nearly as much. Are you suggesting, and are you saying right now that $2.3 million that you enjoy as a result of federal benefits, that's in jeopardy?
I think so. Based on what has happened over the last several weeks and the way they have, I say they, Doge, Elon Musk, the president, the way they've approached
the 19-year-olds who are, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything that they have done has indicated to me, and I will leave here to be on a call with our attorney from the district to sort some of this out, that if in the next month we do not eliminate the words diversity, equity, and inclusion from our work, that we stand to lose that money. Now, let me back up and say to you, what's interesting to me and terrible is that those dollars are protected by legislation. Those dollars are provided for by legislation, right? Congress has written a law, and nowhere does it say that it can be stipulated by the executive that you can't have that money unless you sign off on not having these words, number one. Number two, those monies are provided through the state ed department. So the Constitution in our country...
The New York,
right, the New York State Education, because the federal government does not actually inherently provide a free, appropriate public education for citizens. The states do. So those dollars are sent to the state administers those funds, they're federal programs, all the title grants. Go all the way back to LBJ 1964, the original Elementary and Secondary Education Act, Anti-Poverty Initiative. It's all based on wealth factors because it was meant to drive money to cities, improve outcomes in urban populations, but everybody gets some piece of that. Long story longer, and I'll cut to the chase, the state will face, and I think there will be a constitutional crisis within weeks over this issue. Because if they are saying we're not going to give you the money, it's against the law. They can't decide to do that. It's provided for.
Okay, but let's move forward 1 year.
Sure.
So let's say that it's proven unconstitutional, and that indeed you're going to get your $2.3 million this year.
Yeah.
Fine. It needs to be reappropriated next year, and it very likely would be reappropriated. That we're not going to give you your $2.3 million if your DEI is included, or perhaps even more retributive. And that, okay, you didn't eliminate it last year, and therefore you're not going to get $2.3 million. You're going to get $1.5 million this year. Are those scenarios that are possible?
It's certainly possible, but think about this. Out of the 2.5, this is what it is, or 2.3, here's what it is. $800,000 in child nutrition, which is free and reduced lunch.
Yeah.
Right? And another let's call it $1 million in IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities, right? Individual Disability Education Act, IDEA funds. What do you do in the meantime? You tell kids, don't worry about it. Your hunger will go away. You'll be all right. And we'll catch up with you next year when it's reappropriated. Or where does that money come from? Does it come from the state? Does it come from local taxpayers? Well, it can't because we're capped. So these are fundamental problems besides the philosophical issue regarding whether or not we should be using those words or doing that really, really important work. Forget about the notion of woke run amok. There's plenty of interesting ways to dig into that and talk about where we as a country should be thinking about that work. But we're talking about opening up access for everybody and closing gaps, which that work has allowed us to do and seen the best results in our history relative to all students achieving.
Well, I think in part this has to do, in part again, with the fact that DEI is a misunderstood concept. It's shorthand for whatever it is the right or the left might want to. But the DEI isn't necessarily about giving transgendered girls the ability to dress in the boys' locker room. I mean, in part, yes, but it really is just much more fundamental than that.
Yeah, at a basic level, let's just say DEI is about making sure that every human, forget about race, sexuality, gender, all important conversations, every human has access to a free, appropriate public education that allows them to maximize their potential and fully participate in the democracy. That's what it's about. It's about access and opportunity. It is used, you're right, as a dirty word in a political conversation. That's not what it's about.
Would you take over? Because
I don't even know what to say at this point. I'm terrified. I'm sure as you are as well. I mean, what kind of pushback is being given? Especially at the state level, right? I mean, I'm sure, from a lawmaker standpoint, a lot of those people are pretty terrified right now because their jobs are in the line as well.
They are. Here's what I'm seeing. Politically, I'm seeing leaders in our state be really thoughtful and pragmatic in the moment. So to Mark's very kind comment about what I put out the last time, I think everybody is being thoughtful about their response. I think they are being principled. I don't think they are giving in or caving in. I think they are being thoughtful in saying, okay, then what do we do and how do we do this the right way? There will come a point where people will have to stand up loudly and clearly, and many of them are saying those things. But the leaders that we depend on, our representatives, we've been talking to them, we've been meeting with them, and the New York State Education Department, both our chancellor and the commissioner, have been thoughtful in their response and thinking through then what's the best way to navigate the current moment. So that's today, but this could change. It has been changing by the day.
So how do you navigate when there's no map for what's transpiring?
You wake up every day, and although I try to protect myself too, Mark, now I have to dig back in and read a lot more about whether it was a change in how we approach, the Office of Civil Rights through the State Ed Department. This is really complicated. We will likely next Tuesday night at our board meeting have to rethink several policies in the district based on a letter we received last week saying you will be in jeopardy of ongoing investigations and charges from the Office of Civil Rights. If you're using a 2024 definition of gender, you have to go back to the 2020 definition. So we are quite literally taking steps backwards. So this is a daily occurrence now, whether it's about money, whether it's about Office of Civil Rights, there is a question just about every day about what we should be doing.
And you find yourself in the predicament of having to try to navigate this while also communicating to the community, which I'm sure people are freaking out.
They are, and I think what we are saying, we're in a district where this has been a part of our work for a long time, and we have really productive conversations that are not always about everybody agreeing in terms of how we approach these issues. We are really trying very hard to say we are not going to change who we are. So that's not me making a statement to get people upset that we're not going to follow the federal government or we're not going to be. We are just going to maintain the culture and experience in our district that we've had that's been what people expect and what kids need. And we will hopefully be able to protect people from this chaos through the work that we do and really think deeply about how do we manage it while maintaining who we are.
I can't imagine 16 years ago that it would run through your head that this is the type of thing that you would have to be doing.
16 years ago, and I go back to 19 years ago, and I wonder, what did I do? The conversations we're having are not ones that we would have ever expected, and it is pretty remarkable.
Is this one of the more difficult periods? Can you think of another period of time in your tenure that was perhaps more difficult than this?
Well, I have a hard time rating more or less other than just very difficult. I think the pandemic presented significant challenges.
Sure.
But I think also, in our own reckoning and work around equity post George Floyd, there were enormously important conversations that were being had that were also very challenging. Typically, I would say there's the pandemic, and then there are issues related to this that have multiple times during my career been the most challenging. And then money has been a challenge often over the years that we've had to really work hard to maintain the program that we have with decreasing revenue and financial support.
Well, and can we segue into, you mentioned the pandemic.
Sure.
There are still issues that kids had to contend with and face during the pandemic that reverberate today. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. So, we're in 2025. Think about, 5 years ago, who was entering school and what happened in the last 5 years. Kids entering school right now were born in the beginning of the pandemic, right around that period of time. Their preschool experience, their childcare experience changed dramatically. And the kids that we are seeing coming to school now who are, at the beginning of kindergarten, 5 years old, 6 years old, their experience was very different. So their preparation was different. Their home experience was different. And forget about the kids for a second, although I never want to forget about the kids. The parent experience was different.
Sure.
So we're seeing this long-lasting impact on parents who didn't have the same interaction with other parents during that period of time at preschool, at childcare experiences, even in their neighborhood. The mom group, right, or the dad group, or the whomever group. These are very different experiences that do have a long-lasting impact. And research has just come out in the past week to again point out what is called by some the learning loss that was experienced by kids and how we're still trying to overcome that. And it affects disproportionately those in marginalized populations for sure, and something we really need to think about.
I mean, is there even overcoming that? Is it possible to overcome that?
Overcome, I think would almost be a subjective way to say it. I mean, it's a thoughtful question on your part, Corey, but I would say it's adapting to it. So I don't know that it will change, and I'm not sure that each of those measures is the best measure either, right? I think it changes the outcome for kids, but maybe it changes it in ways that we haven't really thought about, right? So do kids now graduate better able to work remotely or better able to manage technology because of that experience? Do they relate differently to people? Do they understand the importance of community and connection differently? I think those are hard to measure, but I don't know that for many kids it necessarily now can change. I think some of that is going to be fixed.
Are there any other positives? I know it's been kind of a Debbie Downer thus far. Any other positives that came from it? I mean, in terms of, kids, teachers, really everything.
Well, absolutely. We think differently about the work that we do, and I think we need to keep focusing on that. I mean, there was a lot of innovation done around remote teaching, around use of technology and instruction, all sorts of things that we hadn't really been forced to contemplate in the same ways until that happened. So I'm going to get the quote wrong, but about necessity being the mother of invention or innovation, right? We had to figure that out really, really quickly. And hats off to educators everywhere, at every level, who had to figure that out very rapidly. And that has changed outcomes. And I think there's more attention paid across the board to marginalized populations and understanding that these things impact humans differently. I had the gift of spending time with Mark delivering lunch and breakfast to kids in different areas. And a lot of educators had their eyes open to disparities in our community because of their effort to support everything around family during COVID, which school districts did a remarkable job doing that. I think that eye-opening and that reckoning was really important too.
Do you think there was an overall strengthening of the community because of that happened, getting through it together? I mean, I guess what's different about what's happening now versus what was happening then is that it was happening to all of us, and we kind of had to persevere and get through. And that, for lack of a better term, in tragedy, there is a connectiveness that is created.
I do. Here's what I worry about, though. I just was listening this morning to a report around avian flu.
About what?
Avian flu, bird flu.
Okay, yeah.
And how we are perhaps, I don't want to be alarming to people, 2 or 3 mutations away from pandemic level avian flu, and that those working on that for the CDC were all mistakenly fired over the past couple of weeks. So I worry about the fact that we had this great connection and people recognized the need to connect, although there was a lot of division created in that moment as well, and how red and blue looked at the pandemic and across the
masking
country.
Policies.
Yeah, all of those kinds of things. But generally speaking, so I hope that we learned lessons during that period of time. I worry about whether or not we did when I hear things like that.
Sadly, I mean, I loved your optimism.
I was trying to bring it out a little bit.
Yeah,
and I tried
about,
to.
How it is that we all came together. I mean, I think there was a coming together that occurred, but I think that the left came together and the right came together, but both sides did not collectively come together, sadly and unfortunately. So, yeah. And what we're looking for, actually, now that I'm sitting here thinking, what we're looking for you is to, we're here, actually, Kevin, to ask you to run for higher office.
Yes. Fix this. Fix it.
You're really kind. But locally, we have the right people doing that. But thank you.
We do have a lot of great people. And if you think back to the pandemic, and we really did have in place a lot of really good people. We had Mike Mendoza, who did a great job.
Incredible.
We had Adam. You were there. We had the hospitals were engaged and involved. I mean, it was pretty remarkable.
We did, and we had regular conversations with Joe Morale, with Jeremy Cooney, with Sarah Clark, with all of the people in those positions that could be helpful, and they were committed constantly. The governor's office at the time, and Vinny Esposito, who was working with them. I mean, these were people that were reaching out. Bob Duffy,
I was going to say,
right? And Bob, I mean, these are people we could count on, pick up the phone at a moment's notice. They were there to help and answer questions and work through it. And Mike Mendoza, we spent an enormous amount of time with as local superintendents. Yeah. And he was really a trusted friend and colleague.
We owe a debt of gratitude to Mike. Certainly, no two ways about it. All right, so let's just change the tenor of all this. Tell us about Guatemala.
Yes, there we go.
Why did you go to Guatemala? When did you first go to Guatemala? And what are you doing while you're down there?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. So A year ago, so you mentioned the award, which I very humbly appreciate your kind words. I joked with you before. My mom writes lots of letters, right? So she's a big supporter.
Your mom, Sandy.
My mom, Sandy. Betty reminds me so much of Mark's wonderful mother, Sandy. So and I say we won the award. This was really recognition of the work that's been done in our district, our board, our leadership team, our teaching staff. This notion of over the past 16 years closing gaps dramatically so all kids experience a high level of success. That's really what it was recognizing. But it was the thrill and honor of a lifetime for sure. And the national organization, AASA, recognizing my work was really quite a thrill. As a result of that, one of the sponsors of the national organization that sponsored that award. There were three: Corebridge, which was AIG before in their financial section. First Student, who is a transportation provider across the country, and LifeTouch, the school picture company. So LifeTouch, as part of that, every year was doing something called their Memory Mission. It's no longer, but their company was doing for 23 years, I think it was, a trip to different parts of the world. And the trip was usually filled with about half LifeTouch employees as sort of an incentive program, part of their work, and about half representatives from educational organizations, national school business officials, superintendents, PTA, school board members. And 4 or 5 from each of those groups, and then the rest was their company. So we ended up with about 41 people on this trip. And they had gone to Guatemala a couple times. This wasn't the first time. They've been around the world doing different things. And I happened to be asked to go as part of this award, went on this trip, and it was a wonderful, we'd love you to be a part of it. And they call it Memory Mission because many of the kids in the places they go would get school pictures for the first time in their life, seeing themselves in a picture for the first time in their life. So that was a pretty magical moment. So I went on this trip with 40 people, and I will tell you the first afternoon I was there, I was FaceTiming with a class back in Brighton, one of my daughter's social studies classes, a wonderful teacher, Katie Falter, part of the legendary Glavin family here in Rochester. And I was immediately reaching out to our board members and essentially saying to people, we've got to bring our kids here. There is a need for our kids to be a part of an experience like this. And
so just to put it in the kind of, so last year is the first year that you're doing this, and everything you're talking about is taking place last year.
Year ago, January 2024. Right? So I'm in a village called Shepetan, which is outside of a place called Tecpan, about 2 hours from Guatemala City. And Shepetan, Tecpan is in the western highlands of Mayan village. There are 22 Mayan ethnic groups across Guatemala. They make up 64% of the Guatemalan population. There was a civil war in Guatemala for 36 years, 1960 to 1996. Now, the real quick story for you and why it ties into global citizenship for our kids is that in 1960, the Civil War started as the result of essentially American intervention, CIA support for an anti-government group because the government was thought to be spreading communism, right? So not uncommon in that period of time in our country. I'm not making a political statement, just historically saying we supported this. Yeah. And the reason why the government was interpreted to be communistic, which many elements of it for sure, it was pushing back on United Fruit Company. United Fruit Company owned most of the land in Guatemala. It's now called Chiquita Banana. United Fruit Company owned by Spanish elites. Spanish conquest, right? Similar to colonialism we saw with United Kingdom. So the country impoverished, and terribly impoverished, taking advantage of the indigenous population. They were essentially living in slavery to United Fruit Company. And the government said, we got to take back our land. We have to take back our country. We can't treat the indigenous people this way, et cetera. And they were then pushed by a counter regime supported by the CIA, by the American government and others, anti-communistic. What ensued was 36 years of civil war and the mass killing of many, many hundreds of thousands of Mayan indigenous people, who then had their culture and their everything very similar to what's happened with Native American people in our country. But they still make up a majority of the population, actually, in Guatemala. And they've now come out of, post-1996, come out of the jungle, essentially, where they were hiding. And their villages are, all over the country. But we've spent time in this area in the Western Highlands now. That was 2024. So picture me in this village, starting to build a school with a class of kids on FaceTime saying, we've got to bring our kids here to learn lessons about being global citizens, right? If we're raising leaders of tomorrow, I think they need to understand the impact of American intervention abroad, number one. Number two, this immigration question that is enormous in our communities right now, even more so now than it was a year ago. Try putting a human face on that and actually understanding the reasons why that is happening. And then just the notion of giving back and service and learning through service and participating and understanding that other human beings have a very different experience than you, and perhaps you can contribute to their experience being a better one as a human being. So started that conversation a year ago, said we need to do this. Fortunately, I live and work in a place that says why not instead of why, and jumped right in, and we had people sign up, and we had 23 parents, kids, 2 school board members, and the most wonderful experience you could possibly imagine.
That's fantastic. And one of the things I love about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but while you're there, you're building structures, schoolhouses and other buildings, but you're doing it inexpensively. I mean, my understanding is you're taking plastic soda bottles.
Yeah.
And
Really?
And you're filling them with, go ahead.
So these are called bottle schools. So this is a strategy that was first used, I believe, by the Peace Corps. But this organization that we were working for is called Hug It Forward. Incredible people. Find them online. They do public trips. They're really special human beings who've devoted their life to this work. And they have a system in place where they build these eco bricks that are pop bottles, water bottles filled with inorganic trash, so plastic wrappers, whatever it might be. And they are very big on the idea of teaching people how to fish, not giving them the fish. So the communities become invested in this. Now, funding there for education is not significant. Only 30% of their population finishes primary school.
Wow.
30%, right? And we worked with 3 40-year-olds who had spent time in the United States. One never went to school at all. One finished 2nd grade, the other finished 3rd grade.
Wow.
And we were with kids that were finishing middle school who will be done after that. A very small percentage go on to high school, and only about 4% actually go through college. So, academic outcomes, educational outcomes are very, very low. And Guatemala ranks in the like 20-something of developing nations relative to educational outcomes. So this is a significant issue. One of the big challenges, they don't have classroom space. So if they don't have classroom space in a community, the kids just don't go to school. So Hug It Forward is building classrooms. This was the 202nd trip, any number of classrooms built. These eco bricks, the community stuffs those for a very long time, keeps track of them, stores them until they have enough bricks to build a school. And then it is a very simple construction of concrete, and in between the walls, if you can picture it, is chicken wire that these bottles are basically attached to with twine. Now, different stages, when you go on the trip, you're at different stages of the work. When I went with Life Touch last year, I was tying bottles onto these walls. Great task. I'm not telling you it was easy. We lugged bottles all over the place. It was physical. Your hands hurt from the bottles. But this time, credit to our kids, it was all cement work. So we mixed cement by hand. There's no cement mixer. This is sand, gravel, shovels, water, period.
Wow.
Mixing it in a big pile on the ground, and 10 batches of it. And we poured 2 classroom floors. So you picture standard sized classroom in our country, 2 classroom floors of concrete and a walkway to connect them. And you mix the concrete, really, really physically challenging work. And then a bucket brigade, those pails, like 5-gallon pails at a time, up a bucket brigade to this classroom to dump it to masons that are part of the work. Working with a foreman, Beto, who does not speak English, to try and figure out how to do this, and the great people from Hug It Forward who translate and kind of do that work. And I got to tell you, these kids and parents and board members, there was not a single individual that did not just jump in and try and figure out how to do it and shovel and go through really physically demanding work. Wow. So it was just incredible. And the kids from the village all come down and help and participate. And
that's fantastic.
Some kids are playing,
right? It comes back to community.
It's all community. Yeah. And it's community with people that are, don't even speak the language. In fact, many of the people we worked with don't speak Spanish either. Spanish is their second language. Their first language in those villages is the Mayan dialect that they speak.
Wow.
So, the challenges in communication are multiple. What does communicate, I don't care what language it's in, is a hug, is people caring about other human beings, is that love that is felt, is people just being in community with each other. You don't have to speak the same language to be able to do that.
That's a beautiful thing. I mean, what we're chasing, right? I mean, that's what, if we get to the perfect world, like that's what we're going for.
I'm so glad we changed the topic.
Me too. We're uplifted. We're back. We're so back.
Well, and if you think about our future, right? So now we might be in a particular moment, but you had, 20 plus kids and parents who are committed to thinking about the world a little bit differently and have that opportunity, and they are future leaders. I was with some of the brightest kids you could possibly imagine. These kids would just blow you away. One of the kids, as we were saying goodnight, next to his bed was his light nighttime reading, which was about a 1,500-page biography of Napoleon. Of
course, yeah.
And he's in 7th grade, by the way. So, these are brilliant, wonderful, thoughtful, but they are also incredibly gifted as humans and just people who would like to think about the world a little bit differently and lead that. So it gives me great hope. So we're in a dark moment, but I have great hope being around these people and their parents who are really committed, thoughtful human beings.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. That is.
Should we end there?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a good place to end. Is there anything else you want to ask?
I love that ending.
Kevin, is there anything else you might want to say?
No, I'm just really proud of our kids and grateful for the opportunity to think differently about the world and excited about their leadership and their participation, and to our community for supporting it, our board members for being a part of it, shoveling cement with everybody else and leading that. I think it was really just pretty incredible.
Do you see? Oh, I got more. Do you see it growing? I mean,
we're going back.
I was going to say these kids are going to go back. Tell all their friends they're going to be part of it too.
We're going back. We while there, we decided February 12th next year we'll be back on playing again and in that community and learning. We also went to Mayan ruins and learned about that experience and had some other opportunities. But we will bring another group next year, and I sure hope it grows. I'm actually working with our state superintendent's organization to think about a way to bring superintendents there, who then hopefully will bring groups of kids. And there will be people that listen to this and think, yeah, but there's a lot of work to be done here in the United States. There's plenty we could go a mile away from our school and find circumstances that could use some help. And I would agree. Yeah. I don't think life has to be an or, right? I think it can be an and. And our kids will no longer walk past a circumstance and not that they would ignore it, but be maybe oblivious to challenge and to not seeing the humanity in every person they are around, whether it's here in the United States, here in Monroe County, here in Rochester, or somewhere else. They will recognize the value of working with another human being and seeing the humanity in them as opposed to the circumstance that they're in.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for that.
Thank God. You were the right guy.
You had the intro correct.
Really? I could just go on and on and on. One of the things that's really interesting about the new format of the podcast is that we are bringing a lot of my personal friends in. You know all of my friends, and every week I just walk away. It's really interesting. I walk away every week just so excited for the friendships that I have. But I also realize like how in awe I am of the friends that we've surrounded ourselves with, and I really am like Todd was on a few weeks ago. Like I'm unabashedly a fan, Huge. And now we've got you unabashedly a fan. Like it's so nice to have friends that you love so much and that you're really like a big fan of who they are and what they do. It's
well, and similar to Todd, I mean, you've got a tough job.
Sure.
We talked about it, but your attitude is incredible. I mean, Todd's the same way. I've never seen him not smile. Right.
He's even better at it. I'll tell you. He's an incredible guy. Yeah. But Mark, you're humble about this, but I'm just going to say it. I think it's also important to point out that's also because you are a person that people can count on. And in some of those most challenging moments, you and Duffy have always been there and been a great sounding board and a leader and a connector and just a thoughtful friend personally, but also as a leader in the community that connects a lot of people and supports great work. And everybody needs that, right? You can't do it without having people behind you who are saying, yeah, we're there for you and we'll make it work too. And you're a big part of that.
Well, thank you, bud.
Thank you. Love you too.
Yeah.
Want to get to a little Rochester stuff? I mean, Kevin can stick around if he wants to. I know you got a pretty important call that's more important than this podcast.
I'm in now. He'll wait. It's a billable hour for him. He'll wait. No problem at all. So
I mean, I've been a little out of the loop. Again, been gone for a week, but I pulled a few things. Rochester Lilac Festival music lineup was announced.
Okay.
And I don't see Rusted Root. I don't know what's going on.
Who do we have?
This has got Alex. Did you give me the wrong sheet? Where's Rusted Root? Now we have Sir Woman, which is R&B and soul and indie pop. Katie Pruitt, who's a soul singer, a folk artist as well. There is a country artist who was the 2021 American Idol winner. Did you know American Idol was still happening in 2021? That's Chase Beckham. And then I actually have seen this last band. No one so far, right? Kendrick Lamar is not on the list.
You're just going to pick me up off the floor. This is like star-style. Like I am, yeah.
There's no Rusted Root. Again, I'm sorry. The last one is Cruel Summer, who is a Rochester-based band. I've seen them in person. They're actually phenomenal. They're a Taylor Swift tribute band.
There we go. You've told me about them. Yeah. They performed over at the school.
At Mercy. My wife's the marketing director over at Mercy.
Yeah.
And they threw a concert last year.
I might go to see that.
That's awesome.
They're phenomenal. Yeah. Really, really talented. So that's Lilac Festival. Mark, which one are you going to go see? What's your favorite?
Probably the Taylor Swift tribute band.
Because it's the only one you have.
Yeah, well, Rusted Root's not going to be there, so I mean, like, yeah. All right, so wait, let me segue if I could.
Yeah, of course.
You were out of town, so you couldn't see. Oh, and you were out of town also. Alex, you might need to get over here. If you were as excited as I was to see Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary tribute on Sunday night, and then just to walk away, like, I don't know, 1/3 of the way through, just disappointed at how bad it was.
Really?
It was not really all that I was hoping it was going to be. I mean, I was thinking it was just going to be a tribute to the stars of years gone by, and a tribute to those who have passed, the greatest sketches and all that.
Rusted Root performances.
And instead, although I will say 2 nights before this past Friday, they did have several hours of bands who had played at Saturday Night Live through the years. And that was actually very, very, very good. That was awesome. Love that. But not so much, the 50 years of the sketches. Yeah.
So I don't need to go back to the DVR on that one.
Yeah.
You're telling
Yeah,
me.
don't bother. Don't bother. Yeah. So what else you got for us, mister?
Last thing I had here, maybe we can help with this. The town of Penfield has a contest happening.
Yeah.
Did you see this?
No.
They need to name a plow truck. There's a naming contest.
Oh, there we go.
Public voting is happening through the 28th. So what's the next Friday? So far, some suggestions. You guys ready?
Okay.
For the plow. Sir Plows a Lot. Scoop Dog.
Oh, I like that. That's pretty good.
Snowzilla. My personal favorite. The Big Leplowski. Snotorious B.I.G. and Fast and Furious.
Those are great. How about Snow Day?
Just Snow Day?
Yeah.
Those are still a thing, right?
Ish. Yeah.
Can I just...
There's snow days, there's cold days, there's too much of it. My opinion, but
one of my favorite memories of Kevin was when we were down in St. John a few years ago. Can I say this?
Sure. I think
we can edit.
So, all right. So we're floating in the middle of the Caribbean, like just having a great time.
Yes.
It's the middle of the afternoon. The sun is shining down on us. I had a few cocktails, others on the boat. I'm not sure whether Kevin had a cocktail or not. Probably not, because he's a good guy. But then the phone rings, and he's suddenly having to confront the decision as to whether or not to close the schools for a snow day, as he's lying there like sunning and tanning himself. It was a glorious moment.
I don't want to detract from the story, but I should point out, for accuracy's sake, this was a wonderful vacation planned as a result of all of us bidding on something for a charity auction, number one. Number two, planned long in advance. Number three, this was only because the current deputy superintendent forgot that I was away and was calling and asking me about after-school activities, and I simply answered him and said, yeah, I think based on what I'm seeing in the weather report, but what are the roads like? And he said, well, have you been out driving? And I said, no, I'm in St. John's. And he said, oh, I forgot. I can't believe it. You son of, well, never mind. And he said,
see you later.
Never mind. We're all set. But it was actually an ironic, and somebody took a picture at the moment, because I said, I'm surprised he's calling. And it was ironic to, yes, be floating in the sun and thinking about after-school activities and it being too lousy out. So,
and
thank you. It's a great story.
Very happy where you were in that moment.
Yeah, I was, absolutely, for multiple reasons. It was great.
Oh, too funny.
Okay, so because I'm just so intelligent and so punny.
Here we go.
Oh, here.
This is all. Don't lie.
I just came up with 15.
This is ChatGPT.
15 names just off the top of my head.
This is for the plow. Go ahead.
Plowabunga.
Oh, I like that one. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Blizzard Wizard.
Okay.
Sleet Fleet. Snow Big Deal. Fast and Furious.
That was one of them I read.
Okay. Oh, Sir Plows a lot. Oh, somebody else clearly went out of ChatGPT. Cleopatra. There we go.
Okay.
This one's good. Control Salt Delete.
Oh, that's good.
Frostbite BYTE. Plowy maybe.
Okay. Like call me maybe.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. The Big Leplowski.
It's my favorite one.
Yeah.
So.
And then Scoop Dog. So so somebody else. Clearly, some people.
We're on to you. We know what you did. No original thoughts exist.
All right. You got your call. I've got an event. I've got a host. Yeah.
I'm going to the event too. Don't act like I'm doing nothing.
Well, yeah. All right. So you're gonna come. You're gonna like roll canapes with me or something. How's that?
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
All right.
Kevin, thank you again, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. My pleasure, my honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Just the best. Thank you so much. And literally, like, just having flown in, like you're always there. Drop the hat. We really appreciate it, bud.
I love every bit of it. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next time.